Mindset hack for today. Well, it relates to emotional intelligence. And when you ask people, what do you think emotional intelligence is? They maybe come up with one, two, or three things as to what they think emotional intelligence is. And there are actually 15 markers, 16 depending how you want to look at it. And last week, I covered the first three elements. So if you missed those, check out last week's videos that are part of the realm called self-perception, the way that you look at yourself. This week, we're going to go into self-expression. And so self-expression also has three elements. And today, I'm going to cover the first element, which is emotional expression. Well, what the heck is that then? Emotional expression is, let's say, your willingness and your tendency, your ability to express your feelings with other people. And so that relates to things like sharing, and that relates to authenticity, and that relates to vulnerability and things like that. And those are very popular topics in the media. It's very interesting that one scientist, Brené Brown, talks about vulnerability, and the whole world is on that. And it's only a teeny tiny piece of what emotional intelligence is, what psychological research is. And your issues may not be so much vulnerability, but what if your issue relates more to emotional expression in general? Then you may be focusing on the hardest part, which is vulnerability. Also, authenticity is an extremely hard piece. So stepping away from these really big topics that are really complicated to just bam step into, good to be aware of, by the way. I think that Brené Brown is amazing, and it's all what we should strive to achieve. But for us commoners that are not as authentic and as vulnerable, is there some other study out there that we can wrap around our brains around that a little bit in more simpler ways than going into our deep dark past, or why we do certain things about safety, protection, and security, or whatever positive intent we get out of it? Well, let's talk about the very basics of emotional expression, which is sharing your emotions. And I found a really cool research on this, which is totally Emotional Expression 101, which is an effect. It's called the sharing effect. And Dr. I believe Wagner, what's his name, about a couple of years ago, did a scientific study where he would have two rooms. And in room one, there would be friend one. And in room two would be friend two, and friend two would be hooked up to a brain scan, right? And so they had a series of images, neutral images, positive images, negative images, and they would share these with the participants. Now, in one side of the control trial, they were told that their friend in the other room was seeing the exact same images. And in another trial, they didn't say that the friend was looking at the exact same images. And what they found is that when people knew or thought that their friend one room over was viewing the same images, they actually found that the level of emotions viewing the positive images was higher than when people thought that they were viewing the images by themselves. So that's really cool. A second thing that they noticed in the brain scan is that in fact several areas of the brain lit up where the reward centers are. And in essence, we feel when we're watching certain images with positive emotions and even negative emotions, that we feel there is a sense of reward by knowing someone else is sharing that emotion. Someone else feels the same way. And that really explains something that we knew far before this particular study, is that when we're having something to celebrate, or we're going through a rough time, that many of us who are really good at emotional expression, that we want to share that, as long as it's done healthily, with another human being. because that sort of makes the emotion bigger. But if it's a negative emotion, we feel a sense that somebody else is experiencing a pain too. So for instance, in this world where all these things going on, is to share with moderation the negative things that we're going through, and somebody else on the other side of the line, or on the other end of the 6 feet table away from us, can say, me too, that there is a reward in that. It feels good. It feels good because it's shared. Now, another thing that they discovered in this study is that because they knew their friend was watching it in the other room, is that they felt somehow, my friend was with me. Even though I couldn't see my friend, I felt we were in it together. And I actually wanted to walk over to the other room, because knowing that my friend shared that experience is that I wanted to talk to my friend about it. So again, there's this huge correlation when we're all experiencing similar things that we want to share. And that is emotional expression. Now, I'd like to say a little bit about the people who always express themselves about how they're feeling, usually negatively. Pay attention to those people that are always sharing positively, and you are counting on to always be okay and to always be positive. Maybe in the emotional expression that they are experiencing, that they may not always feel heard because they're always okay. Or if you're in the realm of expressing yourself too much emotionally, are you maybe sort of creating an adverse effect? So I want you to have as a mindset hack for today, how well do you do in this emotional expression realm? How does that relate to your positive emotions? How does that relate to the negative emotions? And in your friendships, in your relationships, in your family relationships, is there an equal amount of sharing going on? And how does that work? So reflect on that. Maybe you need to share less and listen more, actively listen more, engage and ask people more. Maybe you need to be calling more people. Whatever it is, there is something to learn. And that's the mindset hack for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to cover the second element of self-expression.